The next item I am going to take care of now to finish up the final drive is I'm going to do brake pads, put new brake pads on. So I like to use Cleco fasteners because it lets me make sure that the brake pads are lined up, that they're flush with the sides, and it also shows me which holes need to get a little bit cleaned up and drilled, because they're never perfect. The hole's never perfect, so I always run a drill through. I always have to run a drill through some of them, but you always want to start in the middle as you rivet. You want to start in the middle and work your way out. So I always do the middle, then I do this, then I do this, then I do that, then I do that, and then I work my way out that way. So you spread the load from the middle out, basically bowing the brake pad down this way and making sure that it spreads itself out. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now, and I'm not going to show that to you here, but I will rivet all these right now. It is now time to mount the brake discs onto the rear. I have arced these shoes, so I arced them to the drum already. So what you have is you have your two shoes. They go on here like this and this. Then you have your two springs, 1, 2. Then you have your brake pedal, actually your brake actuator, that goes on there. This spacer washer has to go under here, like such. And the other end you have your brake arm, and you have your lock washer and your nut, and they go on here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is I like to use this grease. This is Permatex Ultra disc brake grease. I'm a fan of that. It's green, doesn't matter really. So put a little bit there, put a little bit here, put a little bit here. And I do this all before I even get things going. Then I just wipe some of it off, because quite honestly, you don't need too much, and too much attracts dirt and dust. So it attracts brake dust. So you don't want too much, because it'll get all over the place, and it attracts brake dust. So I just wipe it off. And actually make sure that this spacer washer down here has some. Make sure the spacer washer up top has some. Wipe off the excess. Go back again so you get any excess. Like that. And now we are ready. Now you take your two springs. And you put one in there. One in there. And this is the fun part. Okay, without getting everything all greasy, you have to then hook it in the other side. So I'll do that over here because it's a little bit easier. Okay. And they do go in the end, but sometimes you just gotta, yep, there we go. So now you kind of go like that. And get it up over here, and it's going to flop down. Okay, it does take a little bit of manipulation, and sometimes you get your fingers caught, but a lot of times it goes just fine. And this side didn't go, so now like that, get this up here, there we go. So, you can tell I've done this before. So, just like that. And this is ready. You just kind of go like that, and it moves nicely on that post. So now we know that moves nicely on the post. So the next thing is to put this down in here. Best way, I'm sorry to say, is a couple big screwdrivers. So here we'll take this big screwdriver, and many times I will get in here before I put the other side in, but in this case, it doesn't really matter. So you kind of come down here to the bottom. Kind of work it down, and then you want to spread it like that, and don't get too down to the bottom like I did. So let's get this again. So just work this in here like that. Okay, and you have to work it to the edge because the post has to get in. I hope we're able to see that. So the post has to get in there, so like that, and then leave it sit down there. and then I can point it to the post. Kind of like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some grease over here. You see how I spread it on there like that? Make it nice. So I'm going to put some grease on here. And again, spread it in. Okay, so you don't have too much on there, but you want to have enough. Okay. Wipe off any excess. A little bit, maybe just put a little bit down here. Okay, but again, don't want too much. Then you definitely want to grease this up here. Alright, because that's important. And again, you don't really want too much, but on this post, I want a little bit more because there are those little notches. Those notches hold the grease. So what I typically do is I put a little bit more grease up here. When I push it, it kind of fills in and fills that in. So if I put a little bit more grease up here, it'll flow towards the back when I push it in. Okay, so like that. Do not forget the spacer washer. How many times I've forgotten that and had to go back and do it again. I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten to do that. So let's line up our spacer washer. Fine. Spacer washer's in. Looks like it's in place. Then we start sliding this down. And this is always a little bit of a pain. There you go. You saw that slide down. Wipe your hands. Then you can just push it down. So once you get it in there, you can just push it down. Then you pretty much have it. And that's that. You wipe everything down. Make sure everything looks good. And then typically what I do is I flip it over. Like that. I put the brake arm on and I actuate it a couple times. Sometimes I'll actuate it and I'll put some more grease in there. But pretty much that's it. So we'll take our brake arm, and with this brake arm, it has a small hole in there. Okay? And I always like to put the small hole with the high part towards the back. So the cotter pin goes through like that. Okay, and that kind of makes it, because it's going to point back like that, that makes the cotter pin point up straight and down. So let's just put it on the end of here. Then we'll actuate that a little bit. So I'll slide that down a little bit. And I don't know where I'm going to put this arm, so I'm not going to put it on right now. But I just want to get it on there. Get it up right about there, I would think. Okay. Get it into the grooves like that, and then I can actuate the arm. Okay, then I can pretend that I'm doing a brake there. There you go, just like that. And the brake pads are moving, and they feel good. So everything's good. Everything's ready to go. The front brake is the same as the rear brake. And what I like to do with the front brake is a little bit easier, is I take a axle and I mount it in a small vise like this, and then I'm able to slide this down and I'm able to work on the brake here like this. I'm not going to show you everything I'm doing here because it's basically the same as the other one. I greased it, I greased everything, put this in, put the springs on. Now, this is a simplex brake with a single brake actuator. And because of that, these two springs are the same. On a duplex brake with two actuators, with a pivot that will have a pivot on either side, you will have a leading spring, or top spring they call it, and a bottom spring. So these two springs will be different on a duplex brake. Please make sure of that. And please make sure you put the right springs in the right place. So that's very, very important. But other than that, this is the same as the rear brake. And so I'm not going to go through everything with you here. But like I said, this is an R51/2 simplex. So this is the same as what we did for the rear brakes. It holds true as well for the /2s with the duplex. Okay, you still want to do the greasing, you still want to do all of that, you still want to set it up the same way, but the only difference is in the springs and some of the other smaller adjusters. When I get around to redoing the Slash 2, which I'll do fairly shortly, I will certainly make a video and show that. Okay, let me show you a trick with this. And whenever anybody tells you that their brakes on their vintage motorcycle are not very good, I'm going to tell you they don't have them adjusted right. Because my brakes are great on most of my bikes. And even this on a single will be, on a single pivot will be fine. So, let me explain this to you. If your brake cable is coming in at this angle, just say for the heck of it, it's coming in at this angle, okay? You can see that's less than a 90. What you want to do is you want to check the brake to see that it's swinging over. See, there's 90? You want to be able to see that it's swinging over 90. So say it stops there, you're not getting full brake because your most torque is when this is at 90 degrees. That's where your most torque for your brake is. So you want to be able to swing over the 90. So you see in this case I'm swinging over 90. So start before 90 and come after 90. So you want to swing over there. And that goes for the brake, that goes for your clutch. So I'd move this and I'd sit here and I'd go like this and I'd say, okay, if I'm coming in here like that, that's less than 90 and that's more than 90. Okay, to me that's probably around where I'm gonna set this, but I'm not gonna set it for final settings until I get it onto the motorcycle and I can actually see how it actuates with the cable and everything. So once I do that, then I'm going to be able to adjust this to swing over 90. But this is a good gross measurement. If I just line this up, this screwdriver up, with the center in the center here, you can see this is less than 90. Okay, it's probably going to move at least that much. See, there's 90. So actually I might even want to move this one. I might even want to take this one and just move this one notch. Let's see. Okay, it might be too much. Let's see. Okay, see here we're starting about 90. So I'm going to go back. I think this is the right setting here. So that way you're swinging over 90 and you're going to get the most brake. All my brakes work great. And I hear so many people say, oh, you know, vintage brakes are horrible. Well, if you have them adjusted right like that, no, they're not. So I think that's about right. That's where I'm going to put it for now. And once I get it on the motorcycle, I'll do a final adjustment on it.